obviously he is also not really as a result of talks with his team and consultations, he can't really say much. But I will say one thing, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. I was actually commentating the game from the Sinkfield Cup with Jan Gustafsson and Rustam Kazimjanov when was I commentating, or maybe it was the day before. I was either commentating or the day before. In any case, one thing that I realized was that Magnus doesn't make impulsive decisions when it can affect the tournament, affect the game, affect the future of the game. And I was thinking about this a long time, and I thought it's so uncharacteristic of Magnus to just do something rash. I can imagine other players doing it, more super emotional players, but Magnus, no way. And so what I will say is that I believe he has very solid reasons for doing what he did, although I also do believe I think he believes he could have done it in a better way.
That's true.
I think he knows that. But I believe the actual foundation of his argument is probably valid. And at some point, some further clarification is required, both from Magnus, from the guys in St. Louis, whoever it is, because we can't just go in limbo, have this accusation on hands, allow him to play the same tournaments, right? It doesn't work. At some point, there has to be some kind of
That's true.
So let's see. I don't know when that will be. I don't know what's going to happen today. Obviously, Tanya, they're playing in the second game, so goodness knows what will happen. Have you got any ideas?
Okay, so that was the next that I want to watch. Again, I don't know exactly what Lawrence, I have no idea what Lawrence is referring to specifically, but he is right with what he says about Magnus. This is one of the things that really perturbs me when I look at the online sphere, and I see a lot of people are saying, a lot of people are out there saying Magnus, he's become like Fischer. They're trying to come up with these reasons for why this is happening, rather than looking at the simple, plain reality of what is going on, which, as I said before, is that Magnus thinks something has happened. Now, nobody knows what he thinks happened, when it happened, where, what not, but he thinks something has happened. So when I see people who are acting like Magnus is super sore or salty because of rating or any of this stuff, I just don't understand. It really boggles my mind how chess people refuse to just look at what's in front of them with a very simple and objective view. It baffles my mind the way that people are the way that people seemingly are trying to look for something else. Magnus acting like a punk, there's nothing to say that Magnus isn't doing things in the wrong way, but thinking that it's just something that's done on the spur of the moment, that's rash when he's never done this before, that's just, that's not how it works. People don't just suddenly change overnight, plain and simple. So anyway, let's move on. Next clip. What is this? And we're gonna watch this. We're getting into serious stuff now.
Tour director, and Arne, there's been a lot of chess drama lately. Magnus Carlsen, he
I
pulled
assume
out
sound
of
is
the
good, but you guys
Sinkfield
can tell
Cup
me.
after losing a game to Hans Niemann. Now, Magnus hasn't said a word, but the chess world has basically concluded it was because he suspected Hans Niemann of cheating. So why is Hans Niemann, after all of this commotion, invited to this tournament?
That's plain and easy due to the tour regulations. In the regulations, it says that if you are amongst the top 8 players from the last tournament, you are automatically qualified for the next and invited to the next tournament. And in Miami, we had 8 players in our major. Hans Niemann participated there. So he was automatically then sent an invite to this event. And that invite was sent well before the tournament in St. Louis started. So it means that we sent that invite to him, and after the commotion in the chess world, which of course we have been following closely, we saw that there has been no indication of Hans Niemann being involved in any sort of cheating in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. So there was no reason for us whatsoever, based on allegations back and forth, to revoke his invitation. So that invitation stood, and he is participating in this tournament.
Okay. So and that's an important one, right? So his games in the tour has been
so this is the thing that's important. There's this is very important to note, is that, again, people have to realize that Chess24 and chess.com are two separate. I know they're merging, but they are two separate entities. So they're separate entities. So it's like chess24, like just because chess.com puts out a statement that seems, I mean, again, by the way that I read, it seems like chess.com is essentially saying that Hans is cheated like more than twice, probably in money events, whatnot. That's my general read of the statement. They might have that proof. But at the end of the day, chess24 doesn't have, I mean, they don't have anything really that I assume is conclusive. I also frankly want to believe that they probably have a far smaller team that's analyzing everything. Like chess24 doesn't have like a play zone. They don't have millions and millions of games that are being logged every day. So like as an example, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty certain that like every game that I play on stream, like I'm betting you every game that I play, like they probably track my mouse movements, they track my moves, and I'm betting there's like a huge difference between like how much I click when I'm on stream, because obviously I'm looking at chat, I'm looking at the recent events and Streamlabs and all this other stuff, and like all this data is getting logged. But chess24, I don't think they have any of this data at all. And I think for them, like they just have people watching the games in real time from the specific event, and there is nothing going on. So it's very, very different. Also, the other thing that I want to say, they barely have employees, maybe true too. But the other thing that I think is really important to note is like when people talk about Magnus owning the company, yes, he owns 10%. I think it's a little under 10% of Play Magnus Group, which owns chess24, Chessable, everything else. But I don't believe Magnus is involved in any of the day-to-day. I don't think he decides who gets invited or who doesn't get invited. So like this notion that Magnus can suddenly like tell them what to do when he's not directly involved in the day-to-day is just kind of a bit much. So anyway, let's keep going with the video.
Closely analyzed, there is no evidence of cheating.
We have been closely analyzing many games in the tour so far, and there's been no indication, not either for him and his games, that he has been involved in any type of cheating.
Okay.
We do now have both Magnus and Hans Niemann playing in the tournament. It's only been 2 weeks since Magnus pulled out. So has there been some reactions from these two players in playing in the same tournament now?
We have had dialogue with all players leading up to this event, and of course there has been a lot of there's a lot of emotions, a lot of meanings, a lot of opinions, a lot of statements in the chess world, also amongst the players as well. And of course there has been feedback to us leading up to this, but all players were informed about the lineup before it was made public, and everybody is playing.
Okay, yeah, I mean, not too much to see there. I mean, that's all pretty normal.
Either that, so to me, there's like two main theories of what Magnus might be thinking. Obviously, it is clear that Magnus thinks that Hans like is a cheater. What does that phrase mean? Is a cheater? Does that mean he thinks he cheated against him in St. Louis, or is Magnus forming his opinion based on past tournaments, and he thinks that Hans has somehow discredited himself by cheating prolifically over the board and online previously? I think that is the more probable theory, if I had to speculate, is that Magnus believes that Hans cheated much more prolifically online than Hans admitted to in the interview. And I'm pretty confident that Magnus believes that Hans has cheated over the board before. Maybe not in St. Louis, but definitely before. Now, we can agree that if Hans cheated over the board previously, then that does call into question, obviously, the idea of inviting him to like top tournaments. That should hypothetically disqualify somebody from getting invites, but obviously there is no proof. But it seems that what Magnus did today is pretty consistent with his like pattern of behavior in St. Louis. Magnus feels incredibly strongly about this, and you know he's being consistent.
This is true. Yeah, this is very true.
In his conviction. Do I trust Magnus's intuition? Well, in general, yes. I mean, I think we all kind of trust Magnus's intuition. That's why he's getting the light of day for as long as he is. If anybody other than Magnus was doing this, I think that person wouldn't be taken seriously at all. Catching someone red-handed is...
Yeah, like, can you imagine if that was me? Like, I'm just going to say this because I'm sure this will get clipped. Like, if that was me, our chess would just... They would all have their pitchforks out and literally be doing everything in their power to cancel me. But because it's Magnus, like, it's bad, but it's still not at those levels. Yeah, if it was me, yeah, you're just salty you lost. Yeah, if it was me... I mean, if it was me, yeah, don't even pretend to think that it would be kind of okay. Everyone would have killed me. Yeah, exactly. So let's keep going.
Vanishingly, the likelihood of that is vanishingly small. So
wait, what? Cheating, sorry, what did Daniel say? Let me go back.
That person wouldn't be taken seriously at all. Catching someone red-handed is vanishingly, the likelihood of that is vanishingly small. So with cheating, proof exists on kind of a spectrum. Well, imagine somebody played a tournament and they're rated 1600, and every single move they made in that tournament corresponds to the Stockfish top line. Is that proof that that person cheated? Well, most people,
in the chess world,
your
yes.
intuition probably is to say no. They just could have played a perfect turn.
Wait a second. Wait. Dan is saying if a 1600 plays a top move every move, that's not proof? I mean, I didn't listen to everything, but I'm just trying to understand what he said. Let me go. Yeah, he's gonna justify it. Okay, because to me that's like 100% proof. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
Tournament corresponds to the Stockfish top line. Is that proof that that person cheated? Well, most people, I feel like your intuition probably is to say no. They just could have played a perfect tournament. But at the same time, you understand that that's ridiculous. That is as close as it comes to proof, but you didn't catch that person red-handed.
Right, that's true. Actually, he's completely right on that. He's completely right with what he's saying. You're right. Someone who's not in the chess world, they hear that, they're like, okay, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. But yes, within the chess world, that obviously does.
You have to understand that catching someone in the act of cheating over the board almost never happens. The only kind of proof or semi-proof that's realistically procurable is the record of someone's moves and, you know, the correspondent. You know, the correlation to the computer's choices. Now, we can agree that if Hans cheated over the board previously, then that does call into question, obviously, the idea of inviting him to, like, top tournaments. That should hypothetically disqualify somebody from getting invites. But obviously, there is no proof. Kenneth Reagan said that Hans never cheated from statistical analysis in the last 2 years, yesterday on CCT stream. So here's my problem with I do trust Kenneth Reagan. I think that is a major argument in favor of saying that Hans didn't cheat over the board, case closed. But here's the other thing. Cheating has evolved from let me make all of the Stockfish top moves to much more complicated methods. For example, let me play the first 20 moves in a mediocre fashion. Let me play on my own. Let me get a slightly worse position or an equal position. And then let me use the engine at 6 or 7 points in the next 25 moves, right? I feel like that's virtually undetectable. The problem with Kenneth Reagan's algorithm, and I've heard this criticism made of him by people in the know, is that it's a little bit too predicated on the idea that somebody who's cheating is just going to play the top move every time, which is nowhere near how a top player would cheat if they're smart. So I think a huge question right now, and the ball is still in Hans's court in this regard, is for him to clarify the record on his online cheating. I think in terms of putting more facts on the table and realistically asking for stuff to be revealed, the only thing we could realistically ask for that would somewhat enrich our view of the situation is for Hans to address the chess.com statement and to specifically clarify, like, what is his official position on the amount of times that he cheated online.
Sneers just resubbed for 6 months.
Well, there's nothing to tell behind the scenes. I have no inside information. We could get him on stream. Hans has not responded to the chess.com statement as far as I know. Not a list of all of the games. Okay, that's pretty draconian. Like, you know,
this is true, yeah.
Whether he misrepresented the amount of times that he cheated, whether it was only twice or whether it was more than that. And I have a pretty good feeling that it's more than twice. I have a feeling that Hans might have underrepresented the amount of times that he cheated online, and if so, I think it would be really important for him to clarify that. Because otherwise, you know, the situation becomes more complicated. Because you can always then say, well, Hans not only cheated, but then he lied about it, you know? So it's
I mean, basically, to give context, because not everybody's heard this. I mean, most people have heard it, obviously, but not everyone has. Like, Hans said he did this whole emotional interview after his game against, I think it was Dominguez, maybe, I forget who it was against, and he said he had only cheated twice. It was in random games and it was of nothing of importance. But chess.com put out the statement saying, essentially, I mean, again, as I understand it, it's not true, and the scope and as Danny said, the prolificness of it is a lot more, most likely. Now, nobody knows, obviously, but that's the assumption that everyone's going off of, is that most likely because of what are Parham and Sadwani going to get chased like this? No, because I think in both those cases, I think it was only on lead chess, and I think it was one time as far as I understand it. He said twice. He said he's only cheated once when he was 12, once when he was 16. That's all he said. But chess.com essentially, it sounds like it's saying it's the exact opposite. He's cheated a lot more than that. So yeah, I mean, who knows? But actually, this is the end.
His record.
Yeah, I mean, this is yeah, it's. I mean, I agree a lot with what Dan says, and I'm as I said, like again, I've heard the same stuff that Dan is saying, where basically it sounds like the model that Kenneth Regan has, and obviously it's a very good method for catching people who are like blatantly cheating. But like if someone cheats for like 3 moves in an entire game, they do, you know, I'll just coin a term, but you know, quote unquote smart cheating. It sounds like you cannot. I mean, you can't detect it, and you can't detect it. At some point going into the future, what is really stopping people from cheating, period? What is stopping people from cheating over the board in chess? I mean, if you can't detect it other than catching someone red-handed, literally with a phone in their hand or their pocket, or you know, something in their you know, something on them, like, I mean, what is the only thing stopping people from cheating basically is morals and character. And if we get to that stage, I frankly think chess is going to die. I don't think professional chess is going to keep existing, honestly. I really don't think so. I don't see how you can have chess if it is, you know, if smart cheating is possible and it's undetectable. I think we're done. I think we're just done. I really do. Okay, we have a tweet from GMHikaru, another player. I think he's a GM. I've known him for a long time as well. It says, at Magnus Carlsen should be banned for disrespecting the players, the organizers, and the fans. Hikaru, do not talk about threats or anything legal against you. Thank you, Travairal. Appreciate it. Thank you. So what do we have? We have this, which says, it says he should be banned for disrespecting the players, the organizers, and the fans. Again, this is a very tough situation because, as I said, Magnus, there are two things here, as I alluded. First of all, players, their contracts were done long before the Sinkfield Cup. That's the first thing. The contracts were done before the Sinkfield Cup. So there was no way that like, I mean, there's no way Hans could be removed because there's obviously no proof of anything happening in the Meltwater events, and all the chess.com stuff is completely separate. So you can't remove Hans. But then for Magnus, what is Magnus supposed to do? He's the face of the company. He really, in many ways, is propping up the company. I'll just say that. I mean, the company probably is going bankrupt if he's not the face of it. And so you have Magnus in a bad spot where it's like, what is Magnus supposed to do? Is he supposed to not play, potentially harm the company? Like, I think for him, he wants the. Basically, once this deal is complete, then it's all, I think, like, he can do anything in a sense, but he still needs it to be completed. So I think he's in a bad spot. And also, he obviously wants to play chess, just he doesn't want to play against somebody who's been known to have cheated in the past. That's also very, very straightforward too. So, and cheated in the past, obviously we're talking about online, to be very clear. So he does not want to play against someone who's been found to have done that. So I mean, I understand that probably Magnus can handle this better. At the same time, probably the company, like for the company, he has to do it, I guess. I'm not saying it's good. I think there probably are other ways of dealing with it, but the problem is, I mean, why should he have to drop out? And obviously Hans, they can't kick him out because then they're probably getting sued. So yeah, it's bad all around. But banned for disrespect. Also, I can't tell if Eugene is being serious or joking because he puts an exclam at the end, which makes it a little bit strange too. So
Kings here. No way through. This is endgame 101. King of pawn endgame is so tricky, but if you know your stuff, you can save a lot of points. Yeah, this one, it's so unfair, chess. You see the most exciting game, roller coaster game. They always seem to end in draws, however. And King versus King.
Because
did you see that? Magnus just clapped, applauded Prague, and we have a draw.
Yeah. So that also, yeah, this is what people were referring to. And Magnus does, he's like clap, 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 easy clap, and then the thumbs up, applauding Prague. I mean, this also kind of, I think, speaks to everything that's going on. That like Magnus very clearly that it has to do with the past, and he is nothing against any of these other junior players at all. So that's what it is.